Yes, I went to the most snobbish, elitist, expensive education in India. Yes, I was supposed to be a diplomat, doctor, teacher, businessman, billionaire. And it so happened, just out of curiosity, I went to a famine in Bihar, 1965. Saw starvation, death, hunger for the first time. And it was a traumatic experience for me because I kept wondering, what sort of education have I got that I can't see the other half of India? We're not allowed to see the other half of India. We're not allowed to go and live with the other half of India, what we call Bharat, which is the rural part of India. So in those 14 days, I decided that I would like to do something different, something out of the box, something that I thought I could make a difference. Went back home, told my mother, I don't want to work in a bank, I don't want to go into business. I want to live and work in a village. Mother went into a coma, who had nothing to give, and yet they had such extraordinary wisdom that people hadn't heard about, people hadn't read about, people hadn't experienced. And I thought that was where my real education started. Living and working and experiencing with the people in very poor circumstances. Went to this village for the first time 40 years ago, in a village called Tilonia. And they said, are you running from the police? I said, no. You failed in your exam? I said, no. You didn't get a government job? I said, no. What are you doing here? Something wrong with you, you're not telling us? Because the formal education system makes you look towards Delhi, towards Paris, towards Zurich. Doesn't make you come back to a village. Coming back to a village is considered a punishment. So there's something wrong with you, you're not telling us? I said, no. But they gave me some advice, unwanted advice, but it turned out to be very profound and far-reaching. They said, please don't bring anyone with a degree and qualification into your college. So it's the only college in India that should you have a master's and a PhD, you're disqualified to come. You have to be someone who works with his hands, someone who believes in the dignity of labor, someone who believes in simplicity and equality and actually doesn't believe in hierarchy. So we started that college keeping that wise comment in mind. Sorry, am I doing something wrong? Sorry. After those 5 years of being exposed to these very, very ordinary people, I asked this question, where is it written that just because you can't read and write, you can't become an engineer, you can't become an architect, you can't become a communicator, you can't become a designer? Where is it written? Why is it that we have to go the normal conventional way of providing this professional service? So we redefined professional. A professional, we felt, was someone who had a combination of competence, confidence, and belief. A water diviner is a professional. A traditional bone setter is a professional because they are the ones who are respected, accepted by the community at large. And we felt that these people needed to be brought into mainstream thinking because these were the people who Mahatma Gandhi said that they are the backbone and the soul of India. So the Barefoot College is 500 miles southwest of Delhi. It's a very, very small village in Tilonia, 2,000 people. And we said, what is barefoot about the college? It is supposed to symbolize the knowledge and skills of millions of people in the villages of India. It is supposed to reflect the urgency and the relevance of knowledge and skills of very poor people living less than $1 a day. And it's a college because it's a place for learning and unlearning. It's a place where the teacher is the learner and the learner is the teacher. It's a place where we don't give a degree because the certification should be done by the community you serve and not by the university or the college you go to. It's Alvin Toffler who said something very relevant. He said the illiterate person of the 21st century is not the someone who can't read and write. It's someone who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. That is the essence of the Barefoot College today. So then they said, well, if you're saying something like this, prove it on the ground. So in 1986, we built the Barefoot College. He's the barefoot architect who still can't read and write today, but he built the college for me at $1.50 a square foot. And then we came up to the roof, and then I went to the local high-powered paper-qualified forester, and I said, what should I put in this place? They said, no water, hard rock, not a chance. Nothing can grow here, I'm so sorry. No species. Then I went to the local old man in the village, and I said, what do you think I should grow here? You know this place very well. And this is what the Barefoot College looks like today. Went to the roof. All the women said now all the men should clear out because this is a technology we won't share with the men. So they waterproofed the roof for me using jaggery, cow's urine, God knows what else, but it still doesn't leak today. And the women haven't shared that technology with the men. It's a college now where we collect rainwater from the roofs. Not one drop is wasted. And they are in fact sitting on a 5,000 people can sit on the rainwater harvesting roofs because that is how the Barefoot architect designed it. It's the only college in India which solar-operated telephone exchange, we have video conferencing, we are already in the 21st century. It's the only college which has a speed post, so should you have to buy some Tilonia handicrafts from that little post office, anywhere in the world, your product will reach in 7 days. We started looking at the problems of education. 60% of the children don't go to school in the rural parts of India because they look after cattle and goats and sheep. And so we felt that we had to start a school at night for them because that school should be for the convenience of the child and not for the convenience of the teacher. So in 1975, we started these schools with kerosene lamps. 2012, we have all of them solar electrified solar lanterns. We are running about 200 schools, 225 schools, 7,000 children go to these schools at night. But the beauty is that every 3 years they have an election. 6 to 14 years old boys and girls participate in a democratic process and they elect a prime minister. The prime minister today, between 6 and 14, is 12 years old. She looks after 20 goats in the morning, but she's prime minister in the evening. She has a cabinet. The cabinet of Ministry for Education, Minister for Energy, Minister for Women, and they all have a cabinet meeting every month to decide, monitor, supervise the 150 schools over 4 states. She went and got, 5 years ago, she went and got the World's Children's Prize from the Queen of Sweden. And she wasn't dazzled by anything around her, as if she had been there every day. And the Queen turned to me and said, "Where did this girl get the confidence from? She's only 12 years old, never left her village in her life." So I asked her, "Where did you get your confidence from?" She looked at the Queen straight in the eye and said, "Please tell her I'm the Prime Minister." Where the percentage of illiteracy is very high, where there's no television, no newspapers, no written or printed word, we use puppetry. Puppetry is our way of communicating vital social messages. Why you shouldn't beat your wife, why you should go for safe drinking water, why you should send your child to school, why you should get your baby is vaccinated. All this goes through the puppet. And this puppet is Joachim Chacha. He is 300 years old. He knows everything about what's happening with everybody. He knows all the gossip. He knows who's fighting with each other. He's my doctor. He's my psychoanalyst. He's my donor. He's my lawyer. Solves all my problems for me. And he's made out of recycled World Bank reports. Over 100,000 people go to these puppet shows to learn and unlearn, and it's all interactive. You can stop the puppet show in the middle and ask a question, and the puppet should be able to answer, because that is the main way of communicating. This is the way of interacting, this is the way of learning. We have a community radio station, 50,000 people we reach every day with these vital messages, not only using puppets, but also the community radio. And these community radios are run by people from the village who are semi-literate. We have 2 women who are dentists. Where is it written that just because you can't read and write, you can't become a dentist? 7,000 children's teeth are looked after by these 2 grandmothers who can't read and write today. Another 6 months, God willing, Italian dentists, they might perform a root canal for you. If you happen to go to the Barefoot College, you're given solar cooked food. And the solar cookers are made, giving you 60 meals twice a day, all made by women who are illiterate. They are welding, measuring, fabricating this solar cooker, which is very sophisticated. It's called the Scheffler design. They're almost half German because they're so precise. This woman is actually designing a clock out of waste, and that clock turns the solar cooker with the sun. Very sophisticated. Not possible to do it so easily, and they've gone through 8 months of only learning by doing with their hands. Rajasthan is the place for rainwater harvesting. These structures you see are over 300 years old. Beautiful. Not done by any architect, not done by any engineer. Only by people's technologies and people's wisdom, they have made this. This is a rainwater harvesting structure. And today, even today, some of these rainwater harvesting structures are used. Beautiful. So what we did was just use the technology of the people, converted it, and we started doing it in schools. So I went up to Sikkim, up in the mountains. And I went to the chief minister of Sikkim. And I said, I would like to do some rainwater harvesting for you in Sikkim. He looked at me very strangely. He said, you must be a Bengali. I said, yes, I am a Bengali. Bengali, nutcases. They come with all these strange ideas. impractical, all poets. You're coming from Rajasthan all the way to Sikkim. You must be crazy. What sort of ideas you're bringing to me? I said, do you mind if I try it? He said, no problem, but don't ask me for money. Because my chief engineer has said, it is technically not possible to do anything in Sikkim. What the chief engineer loves is that the water comes from the mountains all the way down to the river, and then they have a World Bank scheme pumping it all the way up. Hundreds of crores, everyone loves it, but the poor don't benefit, of course. So the chief minister said, you do what you want, but not possible, my experts tell me. So with Sikkim knowledge, Sikkim technology, Sikkim youth, Sikkim materials, I built the first 160,000 liter rainwater harvesting tank on top of the mountain in a village suggestively called Saddam. And then I asked him to come and open it. He said, you've already done it? I said, yes. Can I bring my chief engineer along? Sure. So he brought his chief engineer along and he said, look, you told me it was technically not possible to collect 160,000 liters on top of the mountain. Here this guy has done it using no engineer. What's the story? Why did you say it's not possible? So he said something very stupid. He said, you know, I didn't learn rainwater harvesting in my curriculum. And I said, what about common sense? But so he went back, changed the whole policy of the government of Sikkim, and said instead of a World Bank project, we'll have rainwater harvesting in the whole state of Sikkim. So we collect today, in spite of Sikkim, over 100 million liters in 1,200 schools around India. This is a technology which is not exclusively for the Barefoot College. It is just using common sense. Why take water out of the ground when you have so much water falling and no one is using the technology to use it? The other way we did was where people had already done some rainwater harvesting, but it had collapsed 200-300 years ago. Cold deserts of Ladakh and the hot deserts of Rajasthan, all villages solar electrified by women and all using solar lantern to generate income. Over $100,000 of handicrafts are made at night in Rajasthan through solar lanterns. Went to Afghanistan. I said, I'd like to take 3 women from Afghanistan. Men said, not possible. They don't go out of their rooms and you're taking them to Afghanistan. And I said, okay, I'll make a major concession. I'll take the husbands as well. So the husbands came with the women for the first time in the history of Afghanistan. Of course, they were much more intelligent than the men. They picked it up. And how do we train them? We train them using sign language, not the written word or the spoken word. Only through sign language, sight, and sound, you are training illiterate rural women to be solar engineers. And within 6 months, they went back and solar electrified the first villages ever in Afghanistan. This is my best solar engineer, 55-year-old grandmother. Solar electrified 200 houses for me, still working. She in fact told an engineer, the head of an engineering department, the difference between AC and DC. That guy didn't know. He was the head of the engineering department. So we made a film on these women. And we said the cost of taking 3 women, 3 men to India, flying them down, training them for 6 months, buying 140 panels, solar electrifying the first 5 villages of Afghanistan. How much did it cost? It was the cost of 1 UN consultant sitting for 1 year in Kabul. And the UN said, we can't show this film. I said, why? Aren't you spending or wasting $150,000 on 1 UN consulting shifting papers in Kabul, and there are 700 of them there at that time. And there was not one village which is solar electrified. So those women have trained 27 more women in Afghanistan and solar electrified 100 villages. What did the Barefoot College do? only put that idea in that anyone from anywhere in the world can become a solar engineer and solar electrify their own village.